So, as a modern coach, you're drowning in data, right? I mean, it's everywhere. But here's the billion-dollar question. How do you actually turn that flood of numbers into a real, tangible edge on the field? Well, it all boils down to one simple but really powerful idea.
Yeah, that's it. That's the perfect place to kick this off. This single sentence, it basically sums up the entire problem we're going to tackle. Think about it. All those spreadsheets, all the metrics you track, they're just noise. They're completely and utterly useless until they force you, the coach, to make a decision.
Come on, we all know this coach, right? And hey, let's be honest, we've probably been this coach. You get that post-match report Sunday night. You skim it, nod your head at a few interesting stats, but then what happens? When it's time to plan Tuesday's training, you just go with your gut. That right there, that's the gap we're here to close. The huge gap between just looking at data and actually acting on it.
So, okay, how do we build that bridge? The solution, believe it or not, is a really simple, repeatable framework. It's something that takes all that noise and turns it into crystal clear direction. We call it the decision-making loop.
And the beauty of this thing is how simple it is. It's just a 5-step cycle. You measure something. You interpret what the numbers are telling you. You decide what to do about it. You execute that decision in training. And, this is the most important part, you measure it again to see if it worked. Look, this isn't about fancy, expensive software. It's just about discipline. You run this loop week in, week out, and it becomes the engine that drives your team's improvement.
All right, theory's great and all, but let's get real. Let's see this thing in action. We're going to walk through 3 super common scenarios using actual data patterns so you can see exactly how this loop works when the pressure is on.
Okay, scenario 1. Here's the pattern you're seeing in the data. On one hand, you've got a high cognitive complexity load, or CCL. Now, what's that? It's basically how much brain power your instructions are demanding from your players. On the other hand, you've got a low captain's instruction relay, or CIR. That's a fancy way of saying your players aren't actually doing what you're telling them to do. So the picture is clear. Your instructions are really complex, and the team just isn't executing them.
So what's your gut instinct here? Your players aren't doing what you asked. What does almost every coach want to do in that moment? You want to explain it again, right? Louder, maybe? Add more detail? Draw it up again? Be even more specific? But the data is telling you to do the exact opposite. Simplify. The numbers are screaming that the complexity itself is the problem. Your players are mentally overloaded. So the data-driven move here, you actually remove the 2 least critical instructions. Then you measure again. See the difference? Your gut says add more, but the data says do less but better. All right, let's look at scenario number 2. The data shows your team's shape disruption, or HD, is way too high. All that means is your players are scattered. They're too far away from where they should be in their defensive shape. At the very same time, their adaptation response, or AR, is negative. In plain English, they are slow. They're slow to get back into position when you lose the ball. It's a double whammy.
So you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Am I giving them too much freedom on the field? Is this a fitness thing? A focus thing? What is the real root cause here?
Well, here's a brilliant data-driven decision. The answer is to run form discipline drills, but and this is the killer detail. You run them when the players are tired, at the end of the session. Look, anyone can hold their defensive shape when they're fresh. The data is telling you the problem isn't knowledge, it's resilience under fatigue. And it makes sense, right? A tighter shape naturally makes recovery faster because players aren't guessing where to go. They have a clear home base to get back to.
And for our last scenario, this is one every coach knows and dreads. You spend all week working on these amazing, complex set-piece routines. On the training pitch, they look like a work of art. But then Saturday comes, and your set-piece transfer rate, basically how well the training stuff shows up in a real game, is in the toilet. It's just not happening.
So, what do? How do you fix a broken set piece? Again, what's that gut feeling? Probably to add another layer of complexity, right? Throw in another decoy run, add another blocker, tweak it to make it even more clever. But by now, you probably know the answer. The data-driven move, the smarter play, is to strip it all down. Get rid of the complex routine that's causing the confusion, go back to basics. A simple 2-player movement, maybe with a nonverbal cue, and just drill that until it's second nature. The problem wasn't your brilliant idea, it was that you were overloading your players' ability to execute under pressure.
So let's just pull back for a second and recap. In every single one of these scenarios, what was the pattern? Our instinct, our gut, was always to add more complexity to fix the problem. But the data? The data consistently pointed us toward a simpler, more focused answer. Now, these are all awesome tactical fixes. But What if these same problems keep popping up week after week after week?
Well, that's when you have to go a level deeper. That's when you stop tweaking tactics and you have to ask a much bigger question. Is the problem really about what I'm coaching, or is it about how I'm structuring my entire week?
And this brings us to a huge concept called training periodization alignment, or TPA. I know it's a fancy term, but it's a dead simple idea. Are your players hitting their physical peak on match day, or are they peaking 2 days before the match? Because if your timing is off, if your TPA is misaligned, trust me, everything else will fall apart. And listen, this is absolutely crucial. If your players are gassed on Saturday because you ran them into the ground on Thursday, then no amount of tactical genius is going to save you. No clever set piece is going to fix a team that's running on fumes. You're trying to fix a structural problem with a tactical band-aid, and it's just never, ever going to work.
Okay, so let's wrap all this up into a simple, actionable playbook. This is how you take everything we've talked about and turn it from just a cool idea into a rock-solid weekly habit. And it all starts with the single most important rule. You ready? Change only one thing each week. I'm serious. Not 2 things, not 3 things, and definitely not a whole new formation. Just one. Why? Because it's the only way you'll know for sure if what you changed actually made a difference.
And here's the simple weekly schedule that makes it all happen. Sunday night, you give it 20 minutes. Just review the match metrics. On Monday, you take that one priority and you design your entire training week around it. Friday is your dress rehearsal for that one specific change. And then Saturday, you just observe. Did the change stick? Did it work? This simple rhythm, this is how you build a foundation for clear, data-driven coaching. Which really brings us to the most important point of all. At the end of the day, the goal of data isn't to give you some magic answer. Its job is to be a mirror, a brutally honest mirror. Its whole purpose is to close that gap, that sometimes massive, dangerous gap between what you think is happening out there and what is actually happening.
So I'll leave you with this one final question to think about. Look at your own team. Look at your own data. What is the one gap, the one place where your assumptions and the hard facts don't line up? Find that gap, because that's where you'll find your next decision.